A mastering engineer is, well, what it used to be, it was the guy who, or lady, who would do the final fine-tuning on the overall mix. Back in the day, it was more than that. It was getting it onto a lacquer, which no studio would do except for mastering, because the gear was expensive, and it took a real skill to make that happen. Today, with CD and MP3s and all that kind of stuff, it's sweetening the sound, making it sound better, in editing down, you know, if you need a radio edit or something like that, it would probably happen here, because it would be after it was mastered. You would need to make it shorter for the radio to play, and assembling it on the CD for final release. That's evolved a little bit in the last 7 years or so to add the loud issue, making it the loudest. That's kind of what the job has really become. I mean, it's making it sound good, but making it also loud as possible. And that's kind of what we do, you know. A CD changer, you know, you put your CD in there, and if you're next to something like Linkin Park, which is really loud, right, and you have something similar in that, and all of a sudden it changes after that CD and puts yours on, if it's lower in level, that's perceived as not good. Right. Even though we have volume controls on our system that you can easily turn it up, it has to come in right around in that area. And if it doesn't, you know, and especially, you know, with label guys and things like that, I've been told they put it in their office, and you turn it into them, and if it doesn't come up to the same level as where their last thing was, they won't even listen to it. So in that regard, demos are pretty much done. You have to turn everything in done, complete, you know, which you go record, you mix, you bring it to me, master it, then turn it in. And it's generally would have been, you know, 15 years ago, that would have been a demo that you would just do, put it on a cassette, send it in to them. If they liked your tune, you got a record deal. Now you got to get it finished. It's got to be turned in as a final record or single, whatever, you know. Even if it's a one track, it has to be done and completed. And that's what mastering, you know, you get it up to level, you make it sound, you know, as best we can with the stereo. I mean, we don't have individual control over the tracks anymore. It's just the left and right. So we would, you know, put some high end on it, clear out some of the muddiness, you know, add some low end, and then just, you know, level. And the way we get level is different from what other people do. There's tricks, which is where the black art comes in. What you've said is the black art. Well, it's basically all compression. I mean, you can't do it without compressing. I mean, it's all various different ways of compressing. You compress with a certain piece of gear that we use, and then another piece to make it louder, which, you know, is different from what another mastering engineer would use. Compression today is just the way you make things loud. I mean, you're running it through a compressor that just tightens up the lows and just makes everything, you know, tight. I mean, there's a compression I use. It's you know, in the analog world that we use, that just tightens everything up and makes it a sound. That's not how we necessarily get it louder. I mean, I have, you know, line amps and things like that we turn up. But after the chain, after the conversion is where I get my extra level. And that might be different from where, you know, another mastering engineer would do it and stuff. But generally, that's kind of the deal. I mean, it's hard to discuss this. It's not that, because what I do and what, you know, it's not. We don't try to give that out to every, you know, you're not going to really get the exact answer from what anybody, you know, you're going to go talk to 5 different guys and you'll never hear, because that's what makes it the black art, you know. Right. Our chain is, and our chain here is cleaner than most. I mean, it's an analog house. We don't process digitally. A lot of guys will, you know, process in the digital world, which for a flavor is okay, but our method here is, take everything, even what's a digital source, and then convert it to an analog signal, and process with our, you know, our custom-made EQs and our limiters, and you know, our electronics, all of our wire and stuff is pretty, you know, custom and listened to. I mean, we don't know, nothing passes through a wire or a connector that's not been like tested among a bunch, and we pick the best one and run. So that being said, I mean, that makes, you know, the cleanest the chain. Even if I did nothing in here, just running it through and not turning it on, you know, not turning on the EQ or any of that kind of stuff, it's going to sound a little bit better. Most of the time, my contact is with a producer or an engineer. It's kind of actually really rare that the artist even comes anymore. I mean, a lot of them in the indie world, a lot of them have day jobs and things like that, and I master from 10 a.m. to, you know, 5 p.m. basically. So they're working, making their money so that they can take it from here and get it pressed. So the engineer will come in because that's what the engineer does. They've hired an engineer that this is what he does. So a lot of times they'll follow it through, and they'll come in, and I have direct contact with the producer or engineer. So if I have any concerns about what the mix will sound, hey, is there another version of this? Is there a vocal up? Is there a vocal down? I have the producer or the engineer right here saying, yeah, it's right here on this file, or oh, maybe I can go home and make that for you and come back or send it to you tomorrow, or that kind of thing. So generally, I have direct contact with an engineer or the producer, or both, if they're here. A good amount of the time is I just get it sent here because people might be out of town. They can't fly in and stay in a hotel, so they'll send it to me FedEx or via FTP site. They always leave me their phone number. So if I need to stop what I'm doing, get on the phone, call them, I can talk to them right then. And if they're right in front of the console, they make the change and FTP it to me right away. So, in fact, I had an artist in here. They were actually the artist and the producers, and he had his computer, his laptop. And we were working, and I said, man, I don't know, I could hear a little bit more of this, and the guy goes, oh, okay, hold on a second. And he opened up his computer, and he had left his Pro Tools on at his house, and he had this program and was able to pull up that desk and make the change, print the file back here, give me the disc, and I was working. And he lived in Westlake, so it would have been a bit of a drive. And he was able to do it right here remotely. So that's actually kind of cool. I never saw that before, and that was kind of interesting. But he was an artist and he was the engineer, so that was it was like a combo deal. It was kind of cool.